Thanks very much, A, for inviting us to come speak. It'll be a double act between myself and Caitlin, and the majority will be Caitlin because she's from the EDI team, and I'm just going to do a very quick introduction at breakneck speed on who we are, just in case anyone doesn't know who this organisation, EPSRC, that everyone's been talking about, is. And then a little bit more about why we why we funded these two particular networks, although obviously Simona and Becky done quite a good job of introducing them. So just to say, we are part of UKRI. There's a big red line around the mistake there because things have changed and our corporate slides haven't quite caught up with reality yet, but we're now actually get our funding directly from the Department of Science, Innovation and Technology, DSIT. So I only deal with acronyms. That said, and obviously they get all their money for us from the Treasury. So there's a direct sort of flow of money and then sort of information and reporting back up. And then obviously we're part of the 9 partners within UKRI. That said, we only really, in the energy and decarbonisation team, would ever talk to the Department of Energy Security and Zero designates. So I think possibly there's a changing landscape there, and it's I think potentially a big opportunity for us. Just to be aware, we are the biggest of the research councils within UKRI, but Research and Learn and Innovate UK are bigger than us. I think the only thing I'd say, really want to draw your attention to before I rush off on this slide is the bottom bits. Those are sort of the UKRI held centrally funds, which are the biggest part of UKRI now. So that's a big change around how we do things together. Within the energy and decarbonisation team, Becky's kind of already introduced this, but everything that we do is about how do we help get to net zero quicker. The particular opportunities that we've got currently are around sort of reduction in energy demand, which is interesting, particularly at the moment, because it's very much interdisciplinary area. And then it's something the government hasn't particularly recognised until recently. It's actually sort of a vital part of meeting net zero. Decarbonising transport, we've got a couple of calls out at the moment with the Department for Transport. Decarbonising industry, particularly a whole couple of hubs that are going to be announced very soon around hydrogen. And so particularly my area is around power, offshore renewables, bioenergy. How do we move the energy, renewable energy around? So just so you're aware, these are some of the things that are in our strategic delivery plan, particularly around sort of the engineering net zero priority. So I thought it's very quickly sort of talk about gender and role models. So these 5 women here, we have Deborah, Patricia, Mari, Sadie, whose names come up on the slides a couple of times already, Sarah. They all now lead sort of fairly significant, by significant, I mean more than £5 million grants, which is going back to something that Becky brought up for the moment. I just want to ask a little pop quiz. If you go back to 2017, how many women would have been on this slide? Go on, mate. Oh, shout out. No? So, yeah, so 1. So it will only be Patricia. So I put this up partly because I think there has actually been quite a lot of progress. However, the programme grant scheme, which is EPSRC's flagship scheme for critical mass projects, which are investigator driven. Here's another guess. How many programme grants do we have in our team? There's 10. You can possibly know that one. I'll throw this question out again. How many of those are led by women? Go on. You can do it again this time. No. It is not, yeah. So I think we've made progress, but it's quite interesting. I think that in some ways we haven't. And I remember about 10 years ago, there was a group of all the programme grants across the whole of EPSRC, not just energy. And I believe there are 80 people there of all the PIs, and 3 were women. So I think there's a lot of progress made, but probably we're in the foothills, I would suggest. So why did we therefore go for our EDI network? This is work that my colleague Zafi put together. Unfortunately, she was so successful at it, she's got promoted. So she's no longer in the team driving forward, but anyway. So this is what we were looking for, particularly from the network clusters. But I think probably if I just sort of think about 2 things that I really want to to focus on, because I think you've actually sort of heard all the other ones, is very much sort of about engaging with us and the other stakeholders, which I think actually Becky sort of put out quite illustrated quite well, because there's lots of stakeholders here who need to be influenced. But we're very open as the Energy and Decarbonisation team to how we might do things better, and ultimately we're about making a difference. So we want to hear what's going on throughout the process, and we were talking to Simone earlier about how do we actually formalise that, and that's something that we still need to do. But I thought, having said there's been some progress, I'd just like to sort of put this one up. This is a slide, I think you can see it's from Gesher at UCL, about what she called the COVID penalty, and the impact COVID and lockdowns had disproportionately on women versus men. And I'll leave you to read that at your leisure. And I think the other thing is I've focused quite a lot on gender, and we do tend to focus on gender in energy and decarbonisation because the statistics are quite so bad, and also the people are generally happier to tell you what their gender is, and they're relatively happy to tell you what their age is, and then as you go down the protected characteristics, and probably Caitlin will talk a little bit about this, people get less and less willing to tell you those things. So you actually have far less robust statistics as it goes on. But I think possibly one of the things we're particularly looking for from the networks is perhaps sort of bit more clarity on what we could be doing on other characteristics, which are equally as important and equally sort of actions required for us as a theme, but perhaps we know less about what we could be doing. So I think that's my last slide.